Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest introduced to you now. Dr. Jason Shumard, DC, has a postgraduate education in functional endocrinology and clinical nutrition. Over the last 20 years, he has worked with patients with a multitude of conditions, specifically focusing on helping people reverse their type 2 diabetes. Dr. Shumard is passionate about helping patients overcome their diabetes, and take control over their health. He is the owner of drshumard.com, which he opened in 2005 with the desire to promote safe alternative reversal strategies and protocols to those who are suffering with type 2 diabetes across the United States. Dr. Shumard received a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from San Diego State University in the year 2000 and furthered his education with a doctorate of chiropractic from Life Chiropractic College West in 2004. Dr. Shumard is also a sought-after practitioner and speaker working with type 2 diabetics and is often found volunteering in numerous charity and community events. drshumard.com is founded on the principles of true healing, and Dr. Shumard's intention is not only to help his patients with exceptional corrective care, but also to educate them on healthy and functional lifestyles that will support the patient's health and well-being for the rest of their lives. Dr. Jason Shumard, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's such an honor to host you. I hope we will be covering sleep hygiene tactics today. I just explained to you that it is NHL playoff series time around here in Utah, and I'm not getting very much sleep. So hopefully we can cover that as part of what we discussed today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sleep is important, my man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not getting much of it. The games this time of year are later, and they also, like during the season, the games go to like a 5-minute overtime and then they go to a shootout. So
Yep.
you know that the game is going to end at a reasonable hour. But in the playoffs, they keep just rolling overtimes over and over and over. And last night we got into the double overtime. So very, very
Wow.
late night, and it's happening a lot. But yeah, anyway. Hope we cover
Yeah.
sleep
Fun and
today.
exciting to watch, though. Fun and exciting.
Absolutely. Man, we love hosting chiropractors on the show. We love talking about like your work as chiropractors, but it goes beyond that, where chiropractors tend to look at things a little bit differently than conventionally trained, people in the medical system. And we really appreciate how it's not the mainstream. It's different than what other people think. And if I went up to 100 clinically trained doctors and told them about diabetes reversal and what that entailed and that kind of thing, I would expect like 99 of them to not know even that was possible. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so we love talking to chiropractors around here because you guys just see things in a different way. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that comes and stems from our education, right? The education is based upon looking at a holistic approach that can be spelled with an H or WH, right? As well. So that whole vision there, because people, and especially in the medical community, they look at the body like, oh, I only work on knees, I only work on shoulders, I only work on hearts, and it's like it's so specialized that we forgot that the body it's harmonious. Everything works together. And just because the symptom is in the heart doesn't mean it stemmed from the heart. It could be something else that's going on that's creating this symptom of a blood pressure issue or whatever else is going on, unless it's an actual mechanical thing. Again, we want to look at the body as a whole. And when you do that, you can really make a bigger impact on that person's health.
That's amazing. I want to talk about your personal journey and how you got into chiropractic care.
Yeah.
But before we do, I'm going to jump the gun and ask you a question surrounding like myths or misconceptions, what normal people think chiropractic care is and what it actually is in your opinion. I find fascinating.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones is the common misconception is it's a weekend type course and you get your degree and here you go, man, here's your doctorate type of thing. And it's interesting because people ask me all the time, like, man, would you do it again? I'm like, if I knew now, probably not. It was extensive. It was a lot of work and everything. And when you look at the curriculum, and there's been studies showing the curriculum compared to a medical school curriculum. It's all medical school if you want to, but there's that itemization. Oh, you went to a chiropractic school. It's very backdoor type stuff, but the curriculum is identical. The only thing that's different in the medical schools is pharmaceuticals, which as a doctor of chiropractic, we don't prescribe pharmaceuticals. So that's the only thing that's different and unique. But the reality is in the medical degree, their really training is based upon emergency medicine. That's why their residency is in a hospital because it's around emergency medicine, which we need, right? Thank God that we have these types of individuals that are super intelligent and they want to help people. But when you start transitioning that model into a chronic degenerative disease process, they don't have a lot of training behind that. So they use pharmaceuticals to manage and guide that, which again, there's a time and place for pharmaceuticals, but the reality is if we had a system set up and saying, listen, you're in this emergency situation, you have elevated blood sugar, you have elevated blood pressure, cholesterol, and you're in danger of having a catastrophic event. Take this medication. But hey, by the way, here's a referral to help you find out why this is happening in your body. Go see this doctor over here. Imagine that system would be like incredible because now we have a system saying, oh, you don't have to be on this medication for the rest of your life. You can now go to a functional medicine practitioner, someone who's in this holistic approach, and create a lifestyle protocol, things that we can do to help heal the body from an inside out, which is why I chose to go to a doctor of chiropractic because they believe that inside out healing approach, not outside in healing approach.
Man, I love that. Okay, I'm so glad you went there with the emergency care. The first time I asked this question and got an answer, I was really surprised. This really shocked me, and I've made it like my favorite question. I've asked so many people at this point, and the number that comes back to me is so consistent. It's striking. And the question is, I'll ask people who are involved with emergency care, how much of your emergency care is based on what I would consider an emergency, a car accident, somebody got shot, I got clobbered on my bicycle, on a bike ride, by a truck, whatever, versus chronic disease care in the emergency room. And the number that comes back every single time is 85 to 90% chronic. It's crazy.
I would say about 85 to 90% chronic as well. It's unbelievable. I mean, and I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but go sit in the hospital. Like you go in the ER waiting room, if you will. Like you come in, there's people that are chronically ill. Like they have, all these disease processes. And again, thank goodness we have a place they can go to get out of that emergency. But why aren't we educating them and saying, listen, you need to go identify what's causing this instead of just saying, here's a medication. Oh, by the way, follow up with your practitioner next week, and so they can continue to manage the situation. Right? I have a big problem, a huge problem when someone tells me that my doctor said I have to take this for the rest of my life. That's a big issue for me because the reality is they weren't there maybe a year or two ago. So something is broken, something's wrong. Why can't we just go and identify what that is and give them a better, proper step to get off that so they can live this quality of life?
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad you took that approach. Tell us about how you got interested in chiropractic to begin with and how that kind of transitioned into, helping people with chronic disease. What made you different that didn't end up landing you in the more traditional medical funnel, which again, we're not trying to like totally poo poo here, but how did you end up more on that chiropractic side than the traditional medical system?
Yeah, so as a kid, I had a lot of problems. I had severe asthma, I had severe allergies. I literally there was a medication called Keflex, was an antibiotic that was a very common one when I was a child. I was on this all the time. So I was constantly taking these medications. I can still imagine it had like these little beads in it when you shook it on the medication. It was like I can still sense it. And I remember as a child, there's got to be a better way. Like I was like, is this my life? Am I going to be using an inhaler and constantly like having my eyes swelling up when I'm walking around grass and everything? I just knew there had to be a better way. And so as I transitioned, I was very high into athletics. I was very high level soccer player. That was my biggest profession. Being from Southern California, it was a big sport here. And so as I was going through this process, that was my intention. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to play soccer. Well, the gods had something different in plan for me because my senior year, I broke my leg, my tibia right in half. I mean, I stood up on it and literally the bone hit the back of my leg. It was just severe fracture. And in soccer in college is in the fall. So I missed that whole entire season. And then the following season, I was stayed with the team. I traveled with them and everything. I was part of the team. And the following season or the following summer, I decided, okay, I'm going to start to warm up for the new season. I went back to my club team where we were going to play a tournament. I collided with a goalie and broke it again in the same exact spot. Literally within 1 year, two broken legs, two seasons missed. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, somebody's telling me this is not my career path. I need to figure out another career path. At the time I was going, I really wanted to be involved with athletics. And I thought, okay, maybe physical therapy is the place for me because I'd done tons of it with a broken leg and knee injuries, etc. So I was like, maybe this is the place for me. But as I was going through San Diego State, I decided, you know what, I don't feel right. It wasn't resonating with me. There was something else. And again, I was in a course, and one of that courses was, hey, we're going to have different instructors come and talk to you about different professions. And one of them was a chiropractor. And the message that this guy spoke was about healing from the inside, allowing your body to heal, and stuff that I always believed was part of my, being, that the body could heal itself. And that alone is what resonated with me. I had never seen a chiropractor. I'd never been adjusted by a chiropractor. And I went with the philosophy because it resonated with me. And I literally jumped in head first, went straight to school because I loved the message that was created around this. And lo and behold, I found out this was exactly what I wanted to do. I was around amazing people, I had great courses, and I wanted to be a sports chiropractor. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to work with athletes, but I also wanted to work with families as well. Just kind of that all around type individual. But again, the universe had a different path for me. My mom, as I was going through school, was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And again, at the time, I was thinking, okay, this is a manageable disease, it's lifestyle, take medication, she can manage this and be totally fine. But that wasn't the case. She started to progressively get worse, started having more symptoms. Her medications were increasing. She eventually got on insulin, and I was like, this is not right. This shouldn't be happening, because she was trying to do her best, doing a pretty good job with managing it, but she was getting worse. So that's when I found functional medicine. I was very blessed to be around a school that was very open and brought in a lot of options to their students. And functional medicine was something I found. I started going to some seminars to learn more about it. And as I graduated school, continued my postgraduate education, eventually I got to a place where I was like, I got this. I know what needs to be done now, how to evaluate for these individuals and what to put together for them and start putting their diabetes in remission. Well, unfortunately, when I went to the first person I wanted to help, which was my mom, who was the one who got me into this in the first place, she didn't want help. She was not interested. She was not interested in making the changes. She was not interested in taking some of the protocols like supplements and herbs that we're recommending. She was so focused on what the recommendation was from the medical system that she was hook, line, and sinker on it. Like, she just wanted that path for her. And so it was very heart-wrenching because I saw her completely decline, and then literally was on her bedside holding her hand when she took her last breath because of a disease that we know can be reversible. So this put a fire under me to like say, okay, this is a learning lesson that I just now learned, that I can't help everybody, that even though I have the ability to help everyone, the only people I can't help are the ones who really want the help. And so when we started pushing this into my practice, working with individuals with diabetes, we started seeing them getting the benefits, getting off the medications, lowering their A1C, their blood sugars, getting their life back, and reversing the risk for complications. It was just such a fun, exciting time to see these individuals come from this disease process with no potential outcome of benefits, because the medical system saying you can't reverse it. There's no options. You can't, because their system doesn't allow it. That's why. But we're seeing them getting better. It's just amazing. So, for me, I've now created this amazing product and the legacy of my mom. Even though we weren't able to help her, at least her path of going through this allowed me to get here so I can help other individuals.
That's an incredible story. I'm very sorry for your loss. That's absolutely
Thank you.
terrible. Knowing the course of what type 2 diabetes actually looks like, it's horrifying. And it's something I've been reflecting on a lot recently. We've covered it quite a bit on the podcast recently as well. People that have found some lifestyle thing that can like fix all these chronic problems, and they get so excited about it, and they want to try to figure out ways to share it, like even just within the household or with friends and family. And it's so interesting that like you get so lit up and you found something and you want to share it, and it's exciting. And if somebody is not ready, they're not ready. It's so
Yeah.
heart-wrenching, especially knowing you dedicated a better part of your career to that, and it could have completely altered the course of her life. It's gutting, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It was heart wrenching because, I mean, I have young kids. I have 10-year-old twins, boy, girl twins, very blessed. And, my mom was a twin, right? She had a brother who was a twin as well. And so, my kids not being able to grow up with their grandmother, I mean, she was 71 years old when she passed from this disease process. So, again, very young. And that's hard. I feel sad for them because, she was such a loving person. She was my best friend my entire life. And it was just very challenging for me to move on from that. Probably still is to this day, to be honest. But them not being able to experience that is probably the hardest thing for me, not being around my mom and experience her amazingness.
Absolutely terrible. Yeah. And what we're talking about here is the lifespan. Can you tell us like what kind of complications that she had to deal with? Like tell us about like the quality of her life and how that kind of went over the years.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you have someone with diabetes, most people when they get diagnosed or the early stages, they feel nothing. They have no symptoms, and that was my mom. She had very minimal symptoms, maybe like fatigue or maybe she was having some like more brain fog. But of course, many individuals, because they're like in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, they'll chop it up to old age, and it's just part of the process. They won't recognize that as being a symptom. But what was interesting as she was going along, her first symptom was dialysis. And this happens
Wow.
quite often with diabetics, is that it's not, many of them don't have a gradual problem. Some of them do. They may get some like numbness and tingling in their feet, or they start having some heart palpitations or blood pressure or cholesterol starts to increase. They'll start to have some of those common ones that are being treated pharmaceutically. But when you look at the complications of diabetes, they're severe. We're talking heart attack, strokes, blindness, dementia, Alzheimer's, kidney disease, that's kidney failure where they have to go on dialysis or getting kidney transplants, neuropathies that lead to amputations, digestive issues, circulation issues. These are major catastrophic events. And typically, oftentimes, those are the first symptoms someone's going to experience, which is why they usually get there because they feel so fine. They think, oh, I don't have to worry about it until they get to that catastrophic event. And oftentimes, it can be too late.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. I think that's important to bring up when we talk about insulin resistance for sure. But do you think most people, when they're diagnosed, and you can say this about your mom's case as well, if you can remember back then, do you think most people are really informed about what is coming down the tracks, like all these things that you're describing? Do you think a lot of people are kind of told and explained that, or explained what a diabetic amputation looks like when they're chopping off bits of your foot or whatever? Or do you think it's just like, man, you have this, you've got prediabetes, whatever. Here's the insulin. Eat, just do whatever you like. Cover your carbohydrates with insulin, and just keep doing that without like really realizing the implications.
Yeah, it's the latter for sure. There's no education. There's no because oftentimes because I do that, right? I'll educate like that and they take it as fear mongering, right? Like you're trying to scare me. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to give you education because I know you're not getting this of the potential risks if you don't start taking this serious, right? And I'll give stories of my mom as well. So unfortunately, the typical process of diagnosis is we see elevated markers, blood sugar, A1C. We'll probably talk more about that in a second. And they're given a pharmaceutical, told to lose weight, change their diet and exercise. Literally in those words, like not specific how much weight to lose, what specific exercise, what specific nutrition model they should follow, just saying they should do those things. And the person is left to figure that on their own. Typically, the ones who are educated in that are ones that they've seen it in their family members. Like they've seen the family member lose a leg or have a heart attack or stroke, like their mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandmother have seen that in someone in their life. Where everyone else, maybe they may get educated and go online, but again, it's usually back of their head because they're not experiencing it now. And that's human nature is if I feel fine, I must be okay.
Wow. I remember watching a documentary. This is almost like 10 years ago where they showed, it was just a few seconds, but they showed a diabetic amputation and it was
Yeah.
awful. I can't imagine the smell of it, let alone the sight of it that has stuck with me for so long. Boy, oh boy, it just seems like if more people were educated on how terrible this disease is going to go and how it's going to progress, and if you can tweak a few things, you might be able to back away. You maybe not
Yeah.
from the damage that you've caused, but you might be able to save yourself a whole lot of suffering.
Yeah, I think the reason why so many people aren't going down that path is because they're being told if they keep their blood sugars under control, those things are likely not to happen to them, which is 100% not true. It is not true at all. The research is very clear. I mean, it's even on the CDC website saying if your A1C is between a 6 and 7, you are still at risk of complications, but nobody is actually saying these things and talking about a medical model because their guidance is let's manage this for you.
Got it. Okay. We mentioned the medications. We've talked about the complications. And what you said again, I think is really interesting to be able to explain what's going on in this disease process. You said that very, very commonly, it's not like a gradual thing like you'd expect. It's like everything's fine and controlled, and then you get on medications that continue to control the blood glucose, and then all of a sudden there's all these complications that come up later. Can you explain what is going on and why we're missing out on measuring the right things when we're trying to make diagnoses of diabetes? Why is it that we wait until somebody's blood sugar is through the roof? And what has been happening in the disease process to get you to that spot?
Yeah, if we go back to the basics first and just go back to, biology and physiology 101, right? People are getting some PTSD right now thinking about that, who's ever taken that right now. But we go back to this because this is literally a basic fundamental function for a human being. Like breathing air is a basic function. This is no different. So when a human being consumes food, that food is going to be converted in their gastrointestinal system, in the small intestine, broken down and released into the bloodstream as glucose, right? People think that sugar or glucose is only from sugary foods. No, everything, a piece of steak or a brownie will both turn into glucose because as the human body, that is our fuel source. Like putting unleaded gas in your cars, it's fuel source. Our fuel source is glucose. When that happens, then you're going to have a chemical reaction in the pancreas to release insulin. That is then going to attach to the glucose and drag it over to a single cell at this point. Remember, we have trillions of these cells in our body. Now, at the level of the cell, there's what's called an insulin receptor. Think of it as like a doorknob with a key on it, and we have a keyhole. The insulin is the key that unlocks this door that now allows the sugar to enter inside of our cell into what's called our mitochondria. These are the engines of our cells. And then the mitochondria converts that glucose into a combustion, like your gas does in your car, to ATP or energy. This is basic fundamental function. Like this is life function. That's why if we don't consume food, we're going to die because we don't have the proper nutrition for our cells and organs. The same thing happens on a daily basis. That's a normal human being. Now let's take a diabetic. All that same stuff happens, right? Your glucose is being released, insulin's increasing, everything happens. The only difference is when the insulin reaches that cell, the receptor is faulty. It's not open. It's closed essentially. So that's referred to as insulin resistance. It's resistant because it can't get into the key. The key can't unlock the door. So if the door never unlocks, where does that sugar go? It goes back to the bloodstream. Now, in the early stages, it's going to be minimal. But now let's fast forward 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and we have many cells that are doing this, many cells. And then now we go see our doctor and it's an elevated sugar situation. So the problem is now the focus becomes on how can we lower the sugar, and nobody is addressing why the cell is damaged. And this is the reason why it's a progressive disease, because the entire focus is lowering sugars. And that's why everyone thinks, I got to lower my sugar, I got to lower my sugar. When that's true, you do have to lower your sugar. But unless you go and figure out what's causing this cellular damage over here or fixing the cells, this is never going to get better. It's going to get worse with time.
Oh, that was one of the best explanations of insulin resistance I've ever heard. I really, really appreciate that. Are you an advocate of doing things like measuring fasting insulin early versus things like measuring blood glucose?
100%. I mean, those are fantastic tests. I've never hardly ever ran, but here's an easy thing you can do from an individual. Because if you were using your doctor going and getting regular physicals or checkups, they're going to run blood tests. And there's a test that they run on there that can give you an indication if you're developing insulin resistance. We look at two markers in the lipid profile, right? Your cholesterol levels. We look at the triglycerides compared to the HDL. When you look at those two markers there and you divide the two, you're going to get a number. That number should ideally be below a 2, even better when it's below 1.5, right? Anything above a 3, you're in danger right now. You have insulin resistance developing here. So it's an easy test. Go back to one of your old tests, do that division marker there and say, is it below 1.5 or at least a 2? Safety there. 1.5 to 2, you're probably safe, but below 1.5, you're in a great place. But if you're above a 3, even though your sugars are not showing up yet, you have cellular damage. It is happening inside your body. And if you don't do something to correct that soon, you will develop pre-diabetes, which is what I call pre-pregnancy. There's no difference that you're developing this problem, right? And then eventually it's going to move into full-blown diabetes. So it's a great preliminary test because it's going to be challenging for you to get fasting insulin and all these other ones because these are more higher scale tests unless you pay for yourself.
I'm so glad you went there with that. I mean, I was trained at a gym that I used to work at as a personal trainer to do these tests. We were able to do these tests on people. It's a simple finger stick. The test costs like $30, and we could tell people those basic metrics. And those are the two that we would focus on: is triglycerides and HDL. If you need more advanced blood work down the road, like sure, you can go on and do that. But that proxy is so important. So I think it's cool that you found that as as a major focus. And then, yeah, talking about kind of the things that you've learned over the course of your career, learning that this is a chronic and progressive disease, but you can put it into remission or you can reverse it. Let's unpack some of the things that you learn that are key things that somebody could understand and learn. How are we going to be able to do it? My doctor told me to lose weight and move more and eat less or whatever. Okay, well, like you said, there's no specifics there. What are some of the major things that you have learned that you educate your patients on the most?
Yeah, the first thing is foundation, right? When we build a home, we got to have a good, strong foundation. You can't build a home on dirt. It's got to be a good concrete foundation. It's not sexy, it doesn't look pretty, but it's a very important structural thing for your body. And I believe that is our lifestyle protocols, right? So that means how you're eating, when you're eating, how often you're eating. Those things are really, really important. So that's a foundational type thing. But the reality is, oftentimes people believe that they're eating well, but the quality of their food is not the best, right? They're buying lower quality food, consuming. I'll give an example. They're eating protein, but they're eating grain-fed protein. Well, guess what? That's genetically modified grains that's in the meat that you're now consuming. So you may not be directly consuming GMO corn, but you're indirectly doing it from the protein aspect of it. So we have one component is just make sure you're eating better, right? Live out of your refrigerator, die out of your cupboard, right? So eat that perishable food. Live out of your refrigerator. That's the food we want to be consuming as a majority. If you do that alone, then you can start prioritizing more optimization there as well. But that's a big one. Just getting in some walking. I mean, movement, we are so sedentary. I mean, we're sitting here sitting down, but when I'm not on calls, I have a stand-up desk here. I'm moving around, I'm walking, moving around my house, I'm going for a walk at lunch. Get some movement. You don't have to go for an hour-long walk. Just go for 10, 15 minutes postprandial or after food is probably the best time to do it. But getting that movement is key as well. And just, as you're doing these things, if you're eating better for your body, if you're getting some movement, your body will naturally lose weight. You don't have to force the weight to come off. It'll naturally, because the more you force, the harder it is to maintain that.
No, I really appreciate that. I like that you made the exercise and movement component of it the second thing. I find that oftentimes if you can nail the nutrition or get that at least a little bit improved, people will naturally just on their own spontaneously want to go take walks or take meetings on their phone and that kind of thing where, when they're not feeling great already, like it's going to be hard for them to want to do anything physical.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you look at lifestyle in general, this is why lifestyle is a component to the insulin resistance, and it's not the only problem, but it is one of the problems, and that's why many people in the early stages will start to see lower sugars. And here's the reason why: because if you're consuming poor quality food, right? When we're younger, we don't really know. We're eating fast food, we're eating all these bad quality foods, these carbohydrates. We're like, I can eat whatever I want, and I'm going to stay thin. All the cakes and candies and everything. Well, what this is doing is when you consume those types of foods, it's releasing a astronomical amount of glucose into your bloodstream. That high spike then requires a high spike of insulin because remember they have to work together. And when you bombard your body, your cells with excessive amount of insulin, it's like throwing too much water on a plant. It starts to destroy the plant and you start to cause those receptors to become faulty. So that's why lifestyle can play a role. But the problem is that by removing the lifestyle and start eating better, it doesn't fix the cells. They're still damaged.
That makes sense. Wow, well explained. So going back to nutrition, like you're largely talking to a group of people who is in the low carbohydrate, ketogenic, maybe even carnivore space. They got there for various different reasons. I like that. I like the whole food component of everything. And I think living out of your fridge is a great way to think about it. Do you have any thoughts specifically about like somebody adopting, say, a ketogenic diet to be able to just say like, look, I don't think the carbohydrates are actually necessary. I can get by without them. I'm just going to live on mostly fats and proteins. So, any specific thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think people, if especially those who are doing those types of things, are really aware of their body. I think some people do really well on those ketogenic type diets, the carnivore diet and everything, those ones. But the reality is that I believe that focusing on one way of eating for the rest of your life can be very damaging to your body, right? We do know that high amount of ketones is really damaging to your kidneys. They can cause a lot of problems over time. So if you're thinking about it from more of a cycling aspect of it, I think it would be a better option. Like if you, let's just use, for example, let's say we do ketogenic for 90 days, then we do carnivore for 90 days, and then we do more of a, bring a little more carbohydrates. But remember, carbohydrates aren't bad. They're actually good for our body. Vegetables are carbohydrates. Now, of course, we know some vegetables are worse than others because of the lectins, things like that going on, whatever. But let's just use it from a general perspective. Our body consumes these things, and we can look at it from our teeth, right? So our teeth have we have these ones right here, like lions. That's for ripping, which means should be consuming meat and protein. And then we have the back ones like cows, which we should be eating like grasses and grains, not grains, but like vegetables, stuff like that. So our teeth alone tell us that we should be omnivores and herbivores, right? From whatever you are in regards to your beliefs, whatever, our bodies, human beings, are meant to consume both. So if we're consuming things in a way that is not overindulging, then I think we're gonna be doing a pretty good job, right? And so again, I think that being so specific about, because we see them like, oh, well, I was doing the carnivore diet and my blood sugars were totally fine. Now we're working with you and they're starting to go up a little bit. Yeah, because you were forcing the situation rather than allowing the healing process to take place. Sometimes things are going to get a little worse before they get better because we're optimizing things inside your system.
Got it. Okay, awesome. I'm on board with that. That's all fine. If somebody were to consume a certain amount of carbohydrates in their diet and include them, I'm assuming you would want them to focus on, again, healthy, safe vegetables. Any thoughts on grains, like you mentioned? Any thoughts there as well?
Yeah, I think grain, if you're not dealing with insulin resistance, grains can be okay in moderation. I would definitely moderate it, right? And depend on the grain you're dealing with as well, because grains have been shown to create massive spikes of sugar release from the GI because they break down very rapidly in our system and they release really rapidly. Now, if you combo it with some like fiber, maybe some protein, it may reduce that a little bit there on that component. But we have to be very careful with the grains because of that nature. Plus, on top of that, it's not uncommon for the immune system to become more hypersensitive in creating food sensitivities to more grains than we'll see that more with like meat or animal protein. That's very rare for those types of things. So I think it can be done in moderation depending on where you are. If you do your HDL triglycerides and you're below 1.5, grains are probably not going to be a big deal for you. You're probably going to be okay there, but just be careful to do it in moderation. Like I still eat rice occasionally, but I probably eat it once a month, and that's about the extent of what I do for rice, for example. Not, and there's many reasons behind that. I would rather get some like more of a whole vegetable, broccolini or squash or something, sweet potato, something like that as part of my carbohydrate load. Bring it in and with a good protein. Last night, New York steak with some what's it called? Some sweet potatoes was a phenomenal. That was my dinner last night, right? So it was just super simple, but I had both combinations because that's the best for the system.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Very well explained. I'm going to ask you this in a bit of a more nuanced way, and then we can step away from the nutrition for a minute and talk about everything else. But have you ever seen? I come and see you, and I say, dude, I'm so motivated. I'll do everything. Whatever exercise you give me, whatever else we talk about in this conversation, I'm going to do all of those. Not changing how I eat. That's the one hard stop. I'm not changing the way that I eat. Have you seen anybody adjacent to that scenario that did not address the crap in their food that was able to put their type 2 diabetes in remission?
Never, no.
Never.
It's almost like, saying, hey, I'll whatever contractor wants to come to my house, I have the painter, the guy working my flooring, the electrician, all them. I want you guys in here every single day, but I'm not going to get rid of the rats.
Yeah, got it.
Right. Every single day there's gonna be damage happening, right? You're damaging your system because you're creating an environment that is damaging, right? You're living in a bonfire basically. What's great about nutrition and lifestyle, it can calm the bonfire down. And when you start to calm that bonfire, it's so much easier to heal the body. So without proper nutrition, it's a foundation, right? Without a concrete foundation, you can't build a home.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to think about that. Going back over to the other part of the foundation that we mentioned, the movement part of things, I couldn't agree with you more. If I could choose one activity for everybody to do, it'd probably be walking. I think it's the best, healthiest, most accessible thing that seems to be like as long as it's not painful, literally beneficial. Like more always seems to be better than less, depending on where you are. And obviously, you start and kind of work gradually. If you had one more kind of exercise movement piece to give to somebody who is ready, willing, and able to do it, what would that one thing be?
Strength training.
No hesitation.
For
Love it.
sure, for sure. I mean, the research is very clear. The more muscle you have, more longevity you're going to have, right? Plus, on top of that, when you start to build muscle, you start to increase the certain fibers that are much more beneficial for glucose regulation, right? Because we do know that there's type 1, type 2 fibers, right? And type 2 fibers are actually more prone to insulin resistance than type 1 fibers, and those can actually be genetically predisposed. And so when you start to enlarge type 2 fibers, it's easier for the glucose management to occur. So building muscle, strength training is like the next best thing. I know people are going to say, well, what about HIIT training or what about sprints? Of course, those are fantastic and they should be added to your routine. But if you just did walking and strength training and that's all you did, you'd see phenomenal changes.
That's incredible. I'm so glad you went there with that. And it's so funny that you brought that up. And I'm so glad you brought that up. The type 1, type 2 fibers and their different levels of insulin resistance. I didn't know anything about that until like a week ago. Somebody sent me a video. I believe it was Dr. Ben Bickman that was explaining that.
And Vivian, he's in your backyard, by the way.
He is right in my backyard, in the wrong valley. We don't talk about the valley down south, the team down south, as we say in Utah country. But
I love it. I love it.
is that significant? Is that like really a thing? The type 2 fibers are what we consider like fast twitch muscle fibers.
Yep.
Is it very significant that they are more fast twitch, or I'm sorry, they are more insulin resistant?
Yeah, I mean, based upon what we're seeing from the research, clinically speaking, I mean, again, a lot of it's animal studies and stuff because it's easier to do this in animal studies and human studies, but the mimicry of it in animals and humans is very similar as well. And so we're seeing that is actually increasing. And again, I think if you listen to his podcast, which I listen to as well, it's actually we're genetically speaking, we're seeing individuals with certain African Americans, American Indians, they have higher levels of these, which are more prone. And you see the correlation with insulin resistance higher in those types of individuals as well. So it's very intriguing with that, which is a component to this process, right? So getting these people moving, keeping them active is a key component.
Got it. Okay, thank you. You mentioned all the things in the sprinting and the high intensity, all that stuff. Is there any particular type of protocol that you really like or like to recommend for people if they are going to embark on a strength training journey? Are there things that are like important to you? You prioritize machines, free weights, whatever, or is it just strength training?
Yeah, just I mean, pick up a weight, right, if you will. But I think probably the easiest things for people to do is just do a full body workout, right? You're not trying to get like this, Arnold Schwarzenegger like type thing. You just want to get some strength training. So if you're doing a full body workout, a circuit, if you will, right, and it can be you can do a full circuit with two dumbbells, right? You don't need a lot of all this machinery and going to a gym and getting like there's so many people here. Look at that guy, and it should be very challenging for someone in this state. So literally go to a sporting goods store, buy a couple dumbbells. You can do a full workout, which is two dumbbells, in your living room. It can be very simple and easy to do. There's lots of options out there. There's YouTube videos and stuff, but obviously, if you're working with someone like a trainer, a way better option than because you're less likely to get injured and those sort of things. But it can be as simplistic as that, or exercise bands. I mean, walking up and down stairs. Like there's just little things that can be done that make huge impacts on the body.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for that recommendation. And thank you for the advertisement for personal training. We always appreciate that. We survived the pandemic. Like we got through the pandemic. The house that I was just at, I'm training a woman. She's 74 years old, Japanese descent. We trained her by hooking up resistance bands on the banister of her stairs in her house.
Right.
She is getting stronger. She's losing
Yeah.
fat. We're verifying that using body composition scales, and she's feeling amazing. She changed her diet. She got more of the more inflammatory stuff out of her diet. She's feeling amazing. Her arthritis is going away. She's getting stronger. Like this is so accessible for everybody out there. We train an hour a week. Like, come on, you
Yeah.
have 30 minutes or an hour a week that you can train.
No, 100%. Everyone can carve that out. And if you can't, wake up an hour earlier in the day and do it that time, right? That's what I
Good.
do. Like I said, I've got young kids. I've got a business. I wake up early in the morning. No one's awake. I literally have a 50 square foot place in my garage where I have a gym. I mean, it's not big. I got a treadmill that folds up. I've got, dumbbells that have the circulating different weights on them. And I've got a bench, right? And that's it. It's all I need, right? And I've got everything I need right there, and I can do my regular workouts, and I do it 5 days a week.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. If it's important to you, you will find a way to do it. And that's a
That's
great
right.
example of that. We've talked about the foundation, and you were in total agreement on, what that foundation is. Now let's talk about some of the other tools that you have discovered that also help. There's lots of different ways you help people. And again, I think once you get that foundational piece, everything becomes easier. But what are some of the more like advanced things that you help people with to, continue to be tools to help put the type 2 diabetes in remission?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, let's say that you have a diagnosis and you start working, excuse me, on your nutrition, and you start doing you're putting effort into it. You're getting some, activity in, and you're keeping your weight at a certain level, and you're doing that for 3 to 6 months, but you're not seeing the needle moving, right? You're not seeing better improvement. Your sugars are not coming down. You're still on medication, etc. This is an indication that something else is going on inside your body, and this is where analytics come into play. This is where we can go deeper into testing to identify what areas or barriers your body is dealing with that is also contributing to that cellular problem. So we can do more advanced blood testing, look at different outside markers than you're normally being ran. We can do hormone analysis that can be done through saliva or blood or even urine. We can look at infection patterns in the gut through stool analysis, even doing more extensive toxicity tests, which is a massive toxicity burden is so huge, and so many people don't know about it, and so many people are being exposed to this, and their body's just bombarded with these things and creating a lot of damage. Now, all of them don't have to be ran, obviously, but we have our tools that we can do depending on the individual. And once you find out what's really going on, then you can really hone in on this and create a customized plan that will mesh with their nutrition plan, because that's their foundation, right? It's their foundation. Now we can start putting together some plan and using more holistic protocols, herbs, supplements, nutraceuticals. For those that are not familiar with what a nutraceutical is basically a product that was created in a lab because these scientists are brilliant individuals, and they can say, well, this herb does this supplement does this, and this vitamin does this. Why don't we put it all into one product? And so if someone doesn't, so they don't have to take multiple products, and they blend it all together, which is referred to a nutraceutical, to do the same impact on the body. And this is where your functional medicine practitioners get these types of products from the companies that we use that you can't buy in the regular market.
Got it. Yeah, that sounds incredibly helpful. You guys, it sounds like you do such an amazing job working with individuals. Like you were just explaining, like this is an individual thing. It's going to be different for everybody. We've got lots of different tools, lots of different directions. So this is in part kind of like not a very fair question to ask you. Generally speaking, is there something you're more suspecting with most people, a direction that you'd want to go if somebody said like, yeah, I'd like to do some more advanced testing? Is there like an option one, two, or three that are maybe like stand out for you as a direction to go?
Yeah, there's two tests that I would run. If you came to me and you had type 2 diabetes, I would definitely run these two tests. And there's a reason behind it. The first one is I want to run a full comprehensive blood test, because the comprehensive blood test, I'm going to be able to evaluate all the major organs that are involved in blood sugar regulation: your liver, your kidney, your adrenal glands, your gut to a certain extent, as well as the thyroid, right? These are five major organs that are involved in blood sugar regulation. So we can identify, are any of them outside of the healthy functional ranges, not a disease, but outside the healthy functional ranges where they're not working optimally. Think check engine light, right? There's a problem going on. You're just not in that disease process yet. That's the first one. The second one we would run is a toxic burden test. So we'd look at things like heavy metals, molds, and environmental toxins. These are massively exposed to in our world, that can build up from things you were exposed to when you're 20 or 30 years old and still be in your body here today. And if they're in the system, that means they're stuck. And if they're stuck, that means they're in your tissues. That means you're in your organs. And we know that these toxins have been shown through scientific research to destroy cells, reducing the ability for normal blood sugar regulation at the cellular level.
Okay, well, tell us about the nutraceuticals. I think you're right. Probably most people are not aware of those. What are some examples of those, and would peptides be included in that?
So peptide will be more of an enhancement of your body's inability to do something naturally on its own, right? So peptides are short chain amino acids, right? So you have these in your body, like for example, GLP-1 that everyone talks about, right? GLP-1 is actually a peptide that's in your gastrointestinal system. This is a very important peptide, if you will, or amino acid chain, because it has a couple different components. The first one it has is a communication to your brain when food is coming in to start to increase. So then your digestive system knows when you've had enough food to communicate back to your brain saying, we're satiated. We're good to go. We're fine. We don't need any more food at this point. The other thing it has is it actually has a chemical reaction when food is coming in to help tell the pancreas, hey, we've got food coming. We need you to start prepping to produce insulin. So it's a communication between the pancreas as well. But what we're seeing here is when you start to see this increase of insulin in the body, it starts to suppress GLP-1. And so when you're starting to suppress GLP-1, naturally, what is that going to happen? You're going to remove the communication with your brain. You're going to want to eat more food, consume more food, and increase more calories because you're not getting that shutoff component. You're going to start to impact your ability to break things down and absorb these things, getting those proper nutrients. So as more insulin goes up, GLP-1 goes down, we start to get more insulin resistant and more problems. So that's why GLP-1s have some benefits because they're increasing that peptide that is suppressed inside their body and increasing that communication. You're reducing your food intake, and it has some other side effects as well. But as you start to stabilize that insulin as well, that's why you're seeing such a profound benefit of these GLP-1s with insulin resistance. But again, it's not a number one all, it's not a fix all. It's a tool that we can use as part of the mechanism of doing things to get the body healthy.
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. I was going to ask you how you were feeling about the GLP-1 kind of situation, how it's evolved. It seems to me like more people are talking more about the benefits, and it seems like people, generally speaking, are having less of the side effects as these drugs are evolving or they're adding, more and more peptides in different generations. Generally speaking, as far as GLP-1, are you optimistic about the state of the state and the direction we're going?
I think it can be beneficial. I think it's going to help a lot of people if again it's all about instruction and what's happening, right? If you're just saying, here, take this and sit on the couch and you're going to keep eating Twinkies and you're going to lose weight, that's a problem. I have a big issue with that. If there's instructions behind it and we're preserving muscles, we're exercising, we're getting good protein still, which means that we're going to preserve muscle mass instead of getting rid of muscle mass, which is a lot of the GLP-1s we're doing, and keeping your fat content. The other thing I think is important as well is that the when we just give someone GLP-1s and it's ongoing forever, I think that's a big issue, right? We know that when you're any kind of introduction to like peptides, if you look at all peptides, there's different ones out there, right? They're all cycled. They should be cycled. You shouldn't be taking these on a regular basis. So you want to GLP-1's no different. But when you meet individuals taking Ozempic or Manjaro or whatever, they're taking it for years and never stopping or reducing it. Well, that's an issue, and that's why we're going to start. We'll see more of those long-term side effects. Those individuals who are dealing with that type of response. I think if you're going to do it, which I think it can be beneficial, it should be a tool, but it's not the solution, right? It's one component of everything else we're talking about. Nutrition still has to play a role. Is there any kind of damage within your organs? Is there toxicity burden? Is there infection patterns? Like what else is going on inside your body? It should be added as part of your routines, but cycled, and my belief is no longer than 90 days, and then cycled off for a period of time. And then you can bring it back on if you want to. So like an ideal could be, 90 days on, maybe 1 to 2 months off, then bring it back in, or even 90 days on, 90 days off. So then you're helping your body to recreate its own production. You're just teaching it again, not relying on this peptide for the rest of your life.
I love that. I think most people that come on the show and talk about their benefits say everything along those same lines. Like, look, this is a great tool. You're going to lose some weight. The food noise is going to reduce. That's a huge benefit. Let's use this time. Let's use this time to focus on protein. You're going to be less hungry, so it's going to be even more important. Strength training is definitely going to help. And then let's
Yeah.
have an eye to the future where we're going to taper this off, and you can cook for a little while on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a good percentage of individuals who are not getting this instruction. They're losing great weight and they're happy. They get off of it. Next thing you know, they gain it all back again. Right. And so it's not we want to make sure it's not a fad, that we're using the right tools in place to make sure that individuals have a full structure. Hey, if you're going to do this, you've got to exercise, you got to strength train, you got to make sure you're getting plenty of protein. You got to make sure that we look at other areas as well, because yeah, your sugars are going to come down. You're probably going to lose some weight. You may even feel a little bit better, but is it fixing the other mechanisms? Or in a year from now or 2 years, are your sugars going to go right back up again? And you're thinking, wait a minute, I've lost the weight, I'm doing all these things, but there's still other areas that are still broken.
Yeah. Man, I love that. We were talking off air just a little bit about your website, which is really good. It's very well done. I love the way it's presented. Tell us how you are getting this message out to people. It's like you mentioned with the story with your mom. If somebody's not ready, they're not going to be open to it, unfortunately. And that was a life that unfortunately went a different way than it could have. How are you trying to get the message out, and what kind of things are you offering on the website, and how do you get out in the community?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple ways. Our website is one of the best options because it's just my name, Dr. Shumard, so DrShumard.com. It's a phenomenal just educational piece, but more importantly, there's an option there for you to register for our educational webinar. And this webinar has the ability to go a little deeper than we've done today to talk about what we do, the best options for identifying your underlying mechanisms, and then creating that customized solution. And then, of course, our social media platforms, which is typically Dr. Jason Shumard DC, so Dr. Jason Shumard DC. That's more of like just messaging, right? Because when my mom passed, one of my major concerns was, or prior to her passing, is I wasn't putting the message out there. Partially because I was afraid of a target on my back, partially I just wanted to stay small and not be, that small fish in a big pond, if you will. But when she passed, that basically left me. Now I want to educate as many people. I want to talk about the options that they have, that, hey, you're not destined to a death sentence here. There are options you can do to help prevent that from happening, prevent complications, and literally put your diabetes in remission.
Yeah, that's amazing. The last thing I want to ask you about also on your website is, again, we're talking about all these lifestyle things and tests and all these things that you can do. But my favorite part is you really highlight the testimonials on the website, and you show the people and they talk about what their lives are like. So just top of your head, maybe the first one that comes up, do you have like a story of a testimonial of something you want to share?
Yeah, probably the one that's like, I don't know why this was Betty. She was local here to San Diego, and she was a bus driver. She was an incredible person, just like this amazing smile. You have that smile that just resonate the room, whatever. And she was just a kind-hearted person. And she came to me because her doctors were threatening to put her on insulin. Now, as a bus driver, you cannot be on insulin. You can't, as an 18-wheeler, you can't be on insulin because what insulin can do is it can severely drop your sugars very rapidly. And if you're driving, other kids or anything, I forget that Class C license or whatever it is, you lose that license when you're on insulin. So she was literally going to lose her job because her doctor's going to put her on insulin. And so we took her through the process, evaluated her, find out what was going on. And within about 3 to 4 months, she not only did not have to get on insulin, she was off all of her medications, all of her blood sugar medications. She had normalized her blood sugars. She was feeling fantastic and she was doing amazing. And she still kept her job. She loved driving the kids. I mean, this is like, there's plenty of other ones, but that one always resonates with me because of her presence was just such an amazing experience.
I love that. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, man. This has been an amazing conversation. I can't believe you told me off air that you're turning 50 this year. You've got the energy of
Yep, I
somebody
know.
half that old, and you don't look anywhere near 50. So if nothing else, anybody
Appreciate
should just
that.
ask you what you do and how you live your life, and live life the same way that you do. Dr. Jason Shumard, tell us one more time where people can go to find you and connect with you and your work.
Yeah, best option is my website, drshumard.com, or we're also on our all social platforms, Dr. Jason Shumard DC.
Excellent. We'll be sure to get those linked up. I really appreciate this conversation. You're doing amazing work. And in my opinion, I think you're honoring your mom and your mom's life by helping to share the message for the people out there that are ready to hear the information. Of course, we want that message to get out to more people faster, but you're doing amazing work. And we really appreciate everything that you're doing. And I have to point this out. Again, this was off air. I asked you if there was something you wanted to talk about or a program or whatever. And you just told me straight up, like, nope, I just want to get this message out. Let's get this out to as many people as possible. That tells me everything I need to know about you and your character and what you're trying to do with your messaging. So I really, really appreciate you. I'm so glad we got connected. And thank you so very much for coming on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.